Hi, I'm Dr. Lynn Mikel. It's really nice to be here again and talk to you about hormones, a little bit about hormone balancing, and a product that I'm using now that seems to really help. So, I would say about 50% of the women that come in tell me they must be having some hormone problems. It just sort of is a generic way of them sort of starting to tell me about symptoms that they're complaining about or uncomfortable with. And what would those symptoms be? Often they're feeling moody, maybe moody, during or before their period. They're starting to have unexplained weight gain. They're seeing their skin break out more often. They might be having perimenopause symptoms, starting to feel some hot flashes, disrupted sleep, or a lot of more hot flashes, something like that. Their periods are getting too heavy, lots of pain. They're having fibroid tumors or exaggerated endometriosis symptoms. They're seeing coming back with cysts. Infertility can be a sign of a hormone imbalance. So lots of things can be related to hormones. So when I start talking to a woman about what her particular issues are, I start thinking about what's causing this, and not thinking about hormones in isolation, but really, again, that word, how are her hormones balanced? The most common problem for women is estrogen dominance. That means her estrogen level is higher than progesterone. Now, not always, but I would say 80% of women's hormone imbalances is estrogen dominance. So I start thinking about that right away. And, are they describing things where things are growing too much? The heavy bleeding is a sign of the uterine lining growing too much. Things, fibroid tumors, endometriosis, things growing too much, breast cancer, things growing too much. So I start, considering that and thinking about that. So, why would we have estrogen dominance, and why would the body, how does this progress? Well, again, if you've looked at any of my other videos, the underlying foundation of health, or cause of problems really, is our digestion. So again, if we're eating foods we can't digest very well, we have maldigestion, we're having a leaky gut or inflammation on the gut lining, we start seeing some toxicity from food in the bloodstream. And this toxicity, whether it's proteins that aren't digested well or food protein antibody complexes, this eventually gets to the liver, where the liver cleans up the blood. And this job of the liver to clean up the blood was not necessarily designed to digest food. I mean, food in the bloodstream, or food proteins, food antibody complexes, really shouldn't be there. But for many people in our culture, it's a huge burden on the liver. It takes a lot of time and nutrients for the liver to handle this, at the expense of dealing with other toxins, metabolizing your hormones correctly, just all the other jobs it has to do. So maldigestion, leaky gut, liver stress becomes a big part of why estrogen dominance can become a problem. Also, we're being exposed to huge amounts of chemicals in the environment. Yes, that are toxins, contribute to that toxic load, but many of these chemicals actually mimic estrogen. So we call them xenoestrogens, and we find them often in our food supply. The cattle, especially beef, are given lots of hormones to make more milk, to get fatter. Again, estrogen is a growth hormone. It's designed to make things grow. So we see that in our food supply. Chickens, they say, aren't supposed to have estrogens or hormones added anymore, but they pump them full of antibiotics. Yes, because a lot of them are sick and we want to keep them well, but also because the antibiotics act like a growth hormone, a chemical that looks similar enough to estrogen, where it will sit down on an estrogen receptor in our body and create an estrogen-like effect. Chemicals that are used as preservatives in personal care products, lotions, shampoos, toothpaste. I mean, they're in everything. Some of those you might heard of, like parabens, phthalates, bisphenols, are chemicals. If you look on a label of a personal care product, usually the last two or three things are those preservative type molecules. And a lot of these molecules are estrogenic. We call them endocrine disruptors. You'll see that in the literature. But they're basically estrogen-like molecules, again, contributing to this estrogen or growth promoting chemical or hormone in our body. Insecticides, pesticides, again, also mimic estrogen, and huge amounts of that are being in our food supply and being transferred from the food into our bodies and into our systems, whether they're peeled or not peeled, washed or not washed. We're still getting huge amounts of exposure to those chemicals, which are estrogenic. Again, another reason maybe to eat organic as much as possible, and even chlorine can have an estrogenic-like effect. So many years ago, and at least 10 years ago, I started hearing about or read an article about little salamanders starting to lose their male genitalia because the environment, the water, especially in marshy areas, had so many chemicals that were apparently estrogenic. It was turning them from male to more female type genitalia. And sure enough, I just Googled that this afternoon before I kind of prepared this talk, and the what was it, from National Geographic News, atrazine, a top-selling weed killer in the United States and the world, has been found to dramatically affect the sexual development of male frogs, turning them into hermaphrodites. And this is done by these chemicals increasing aromatase enzymes, which are converting testosterone into estrogen. So it's a really big problem. Our world, and men and women, babies, are really getting exposed to chemicals that are very highly promoting estrogen. So again, small little animals we could see because of their body weight, but then you think about the effect on our babies when we're feeding them soy, which is an estrogenic molecule, soy formulas, again, putting products, lotions on them that might have these chemicals. We're really at an early age inundating their bodies with a chemical that has to be handled by the liver to find some semblance of balance, and even at a young age. And again, with this relative higher degree of exposure because of body weight, it becomes a real serious problem. So, if you think about the symptoms of estrogen dominance, all those things that I said people come in complaining about. So we want to, again, look at the cause. As a naturopath, I'd look at diet first and start teaching them about diet. I'd start cleaning up the gut by getting them off wheat and dairy. I'd probably start talking about the value of eating organic food and how much that's gonna, those two things alone will help the liver. And then we have this impact on hormones, because once gut is cleaned up, the liver's functioning better, then we have this ability to naturally start balancing our hormones in a much healthier way and seeing much less of these symptoms that can start showing up when hormones are out of balance. So a product I've been using and finding a really good value with, really in short amount of time for many women, is this product, Total Femme Balance. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the specific nutrients or herbs, chemicals in there, then why they're helpful. And I'm hoping that the first part of that talk gave you a little insight about understanding these chemicals and why they're supportive. So the Vitex is an herb in here that really has a history of being able to promote more of a progesterone type effect in women. And when we're talking about estrogen progesterone balance, remember, estrogen is more of the growth hormone. It makes the uterine lining develop, and progesterone is more about keeping that growth effect in check. So when we have this estrogen dominance, too much exposure, our liver's not handling estrogen, when we add something like Vitex, we're seeing that it kind of brings the progesterone level up a little bit and kind of balances or keeps in check that growth effect of the estrogen. It also tends to work on the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, which are signaling to the ovary, which is where we're making a lot of our estrogen. So that signaling and keeping that signaling and sort of the body's feedback mechanism in check is the value of that herb, the Vitex. Black cohosh is also an herb, really known as a phytoestrogen, meaning a plant-like estrogen. Again, a chemical in the black cohosh looks a lot like estrogen, will sit down on an estrogen receptor, but it has a milder growth effect. It has a milder promoting effect than the estrogen molecules we make. So it outcompetes some of our stronger estrogens and subdues that sort of growth effect that the estrogen can have. DIM is a great chemical in this product that comes from cruciferous vegetables, and it's a powerhouse for helping the liver detoxify and completely break down our estrogen so they can be eliminated. Sometimes people's liver's underfunctioning. They don't have the nutrients they need to fuel the liver to break down estrogen, and you can create a couple metabolites that are actually rather toxic. I call them a toxic estrogen, but they're toxic because they make cells sensitive to estrogen grow too much, including breast cancer cells, uterine lining, aka fibroid tumors, the ovaries. So if you have a lot of this toxic estrogen around, you're more susceptible to that. And a lot of women are showing this detoxification, really. So the DIM is really the wonder food for breast health and for female health, but it comes from the cruciferous vegetables. So even better, even if you do a product like this, is have cruciferous vegetables cooked. Ideally, often, at least 3 to 5 times a week as a way of really getting the whole food, the whole plant, to supplement and even support the DIM if you took it in a concentrated form like in this formula. Calcium D-glucarate, it promotes the proper elimination of estrogen. The green tea and resveratrol really are antioxidants that help protect cells from damage. And when you have toxic estrogen around or toxins around, which we're all being exposed to, the antioxidants actually preserve our tissue damage from those toxins by offering up an electron instead of your cell offering up an electron and causing a hole or a sore in that cell, or a vulnerable cell that could be damaged. So this antioxidants have this great ability to preserve tissue, to preserve the DNA from damage, to again just keep the integrity of our colon cells intact when we're eliminating. Again, if we have a toxic metabolite of estrogen and it's sitting in the colon and you don't have good elimination, again, the ability of those toxins to start damaging the cell wall of the colon is there. If you have a lot of antioxidants in your diet and you have good elimination, you've got a lot of protection for those cells or for those chemicals to be excreted and not to do damage in that way. So green tea has been known in studies to really have a protective effect for breast cancer in particular, and often women who have a history or have had breast cancer or are just proactive will drink up to 6 cups of green tea a day just for that antioxidant protection, especially related to the breast. B6, B12, and folic acid and the methylated folic acid are in this product, again having to do with specific support in healthy cell regulation. So again, if somebody's taking this product because they don't want to have breast cancer or they've had breast cancer and they want to be proactive in prevention, again, having nutrients that help with accurate cell replication is really important. And you think about when women are pregnant and they're all adamant that you get enough folic acid, it's because it's so important in that neural tube development of the fetus to have correct cell development, especially in those early days. And they found that with inadequate folic acid, we had all kinds of neural tube defects and some serious problems with birth defects. So again, the B6, B12, methylated folic acid are in this product and really help with cell regulation, especially maintaining good cell replication in the breast tissue. Magnesium and calcium really support bones, hormone health through enzyme function, and they help with muscle relaxation, helping with muscle cramping. We're thinking more about that PMS time when women have a lot of muscle cramps. So it's good for every stage of a woman's life, for those younger years when you're having your menses, learning learning how to get your hormones balanced during that early time. Midlife, when you're having children and your cycles are changing because of interruptions with pregnancies. During perimenopause, which can be anywhere from, 7 years before and after you stop your period, that time of change in hormones, it's very regulating. And then for breast health protection over the course of your life as a woman. So it's been a really good product. I've been really happy to see it work quickly. Again, a product alone isn't going to be a magic pill. Again, that information about optimal digestion, optimal liver health, organic foods, cruciferous vegetables, all those really come into play and give you the best effects over the long term. And I love food as medicine, so I really like to have products that are food-based and educate you about what you can do in a lifestyle that will give you that vitality and health. So thanks for listening, and I hope you join us again. If you want to look at the article that I wrote on this estrogen dominance or a couple links, just look at that after the video. Thank you.